For the sake of time, I'm not going to pause after each question. So if you want to do the questions yourself, just every time I scroll to a new question, pause and try it yourself because I'm going to try to go through this somewhat quickly. Okay, let's do question 1. In a single-celled organisms, materials are stored primarily in... Okay, so where are materials stored in? You could just ignore single-celled organisms. Materials are stored in the vacuoles. That's just something you have to memorize. Vacuoles are open spaces that you can store things in. Ribosomes are the site of protein synthesis. Nuclei hold the DNA and direct cell operations. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell where cellular respiration is and makes energy. None of those things have to do with storing things, but vacuoles do. Question 2. The human female reproductive cycle is regulated primarily by the... So regulation is going to be done by hormones. That's always going to be the answer whenever it says regulation. And the way that works is that hormones are signals that are sent throughout your body, and they could be for anything. It could be, I'm hungry, so let's send a hormone to different places to get energy. In the female reproductive cycle, it could be to raise estrogen cycles or whatever. Now, white blood cells, those are involved in defending you from diseases. Muscle cells, that's moving and stuff. Enzymes of the digestive system. Well, enzymes are proteins that help reactions. The digestive system is breaking things down. So enzymes in the digestive system are going to break things down. Those three don't have anything to do with human female reproductive system, but hormones and the endocrine system, by the way, is just all of the hormones. That's what that system is called. Okay, number 3. A photograph of a Siamese cat is shown below. So we see that there's some areas that are black and some areas that are white. Siamese cats have dark fur in areas of the body that are cooler and light fur in parts of the body that are warmer. So depending on whether the part of the body is cold or warm, you have different color fur. The color differences in this Siamese cat are most likely due to what? Now, these kind of answers, the Regents love these questions. The way gene expression works is that even though every cell has the same exact genetics in your entire body, whether it's a heart cell, an eye cell, a skin cell, they all have the same DNA. But the way things are able to be changed is different genes are expressed. So in the eye cell, eye genes are expressed. In the heart cell, heart genes are expressed. So the reason why sometimes it could be light and sometimes it could be dark is because the environment can change which genes are expressed. So even though the white fur and the dark fur have the same exact genes, the cells in the two parts have the same genes. Because of the different temperature, they're going to be able to express different genes. And the reason they would want to do that is because dark fur usually is hotter because dark retains heat. That's why you shouldn't wear a black shirt on a summer day. One, decrease in glucose produced with light fur. That's wrong for 2 reasons. First of all, animals can't make glucose. And second of all, why would glucose have anything to do with the color of the fur? Mutations in the genes for eye color, we're not talking about eyes here even, so that makes no sense. And so 2 would be tricky, more DNA molecules being produced in areas with light fur. But again, all cells have the same DNA. It's just that different DNA is being expressed. Okay, let us go to question 4. When deciding on new environmental policies and laws, which term is used to describe the comparison between benefits and costs of human activities? So this is literally not even a biology question. It's asking what's an English word that can be used to compare benefits and costs? Well, you should get that. That's trade-off. A trade-off, should I do this? Well, there's pros here, but cons there. Technology, what technology is. Climate change is getting hotter or whatever. Industrialization is making technology. That has nothing to do with anything. That's a pretty easy question. Okay, question 5. If the grass in the front yard of an abandoned house is not cut for several years, the yard may become overgrown with taller grasses, bushes, and shrubs. This is an example of the process of, so this is just a straight up vocab question. So if you know your vocab, you'll know that ecological succession is how the plant community changes over time. First, you're going to have these little mosses and lichens, then they're going to move away and you're going to get slightly taller things like bushes, you're going to get small trees, you're going to get big trees eventually. And the reason that it goes through this succession where it gets bigger and bigger and bigger is because the bigger plants are able to get light better. But before the bigger, because they're taller up, so they're going to crowd out all of the smaller plants, they're not going to be able to get light. But the big plants can't just start there right away because the soil might not be fertile enough. So we go through this succession as the plants get more and more complex and bigger. Homeostasis is just maintaining internal body temperature and stuff. That wouldn't have to do with new species of plants coming in of taller grasses, bushes, and shrubs. Direct harvesting just means farmers taking stuff. Again, direct harvesting would get rid of some of the grasses, but it wouldn't explain why there are new grasses, bushes, and shrubs. Evolution, you might think it's that, but evolution, remember, is when one population or species changes. So it would be like if grass started becoming taller and taller and taller, that you can say is evolution because maybe the smaller grasses are being killed. But it wouldn't explain how new species come in, like bushes and shrubs. This is just vocab. Ecological succession is when new species of plants come in. Okay, number 6. The northern snakehead is a type of Asian fish that eats smaller fish. So it eats smaller fish and is adapted to a freshwater habitat. The presence of these fish in American waters is of concern because it might offer too much competition to native. Which of these 4? So what we have is these fish that aren't native, that eat smaller fish, are now coming to America. So who are they going to compete with? Or are they going to compete with people that have the same role that they do? If they eat smaller fish and they come to America and there are other animals here that eat smaller fish, now they're going to be competing with each other. So it is going to be predators because it's eating smaller fish. Again, if a competition would mean that you have the same role. If they're a predator because they eat smaller fish, then they have the same role as other predators, and now there's going to be competition between the two of them. Herbivores means eating plants, but these fish don't eat plants, so they're not going to compete with anyone eating plants. They have nothing to do with them. Decomposers, well, the fish is definitely not a decomposer. That's like bacteria or fungi or stuff that break down dead matter. And producers are like plants, and this fish is clearly not a plant, so it wouldn't be competing with plants either. So it's number 2. Okay, question 7. In a food web, which type of organism receives energy from the other 3 types? So we have producers, carnivores, decomposers, and herbivores. One of these receives from all the other 4. So if you draw out a little food web, I'm just going to write the first letter of each because it's hard to write on here. But you have producers, and producers are eaten by herbivores, right? These are like, something like a grasshopper or something that eats like the grass. That's plants. That's producers, and then herbivores. Then you get carnivores who eat herbivores. But so far, each of these is only getting energy from one thing. And remember, the P is getting energy from the sun. We'll draw a little sun here. Jesus, it's hard to write on here. Whatever, you get the idea. So we have the sun that gets energy to the producers. The herbivores eat the producers. The carnivores eat the herbivores. But remember, decomposers can decompose any dead organic matter. Decomposers can get from all 3 of them. Whether it's a dead plant, whether it's a dead herbivore, whether it's a dead carnivore, bacteria and fungi don't care. They can break you down either way, and they get energy from all 3. Question 8. An amoeba is a single-celled heterotrophic organism. So it's heterotrophic. Okay. And single-celled means it might be different than what you would, like a normal heterotrophic, like an animal. In order to meet its energy needs, it relies directly on the interaction of rich cell structures. So this is actually a very difficult question. So try this one yourself for sure. Okay. So chloroplasts would definitely be wrong because chloroplasts make their own energy. That's how plants do photosynthesis. But we said it's heterotrophic, which means it has to take energy from somewhere else. We're going to do this through process of elimination. Let's skip 2 for a second. Nucleus and ribosomes. The nucleus has like DNA, and ribosomes make proteins. So that is necessary for your body for sure, but it doesn't really give you energy. Energy is like when you take in like sugar and like fats and stuff like that. But these have to do with proteins. Vacuoles they can store food, but it doesn't make food. So that doesn't make sense either. And again, the nucleus is just like holding DNA and stuff. So we know the answer is 2 because it's the only one that makes sense. But why is it 2? The cell membrane and mitochondria. Well, we know mitochondria breaks down food to get energy. So that explains how it meets its energy needs. But, whoops. But how does the cell membrane have to do with it? Well, remember, it's single-celled. So if we have the single cell and we have all of these particles outside that can give it food, through the process of diffusion, since there's more food particles on the outside than the inside, through diffusion through the selectively permeable membrane, these things can now go inside to the cell, right? Because it goes down its concentration gradient, so it's going to be the same amount everywhere. So that's how the cell membrane has to do with meeting its energy needs, because it lets food across the membrane during diffusion, and then the mitochondria can break it down and make energy. Question 9. Recently, oil from a wrecked tanker resulted in a disaster in ecosystems containing many unique species. The potential loss of these species could result in, okay, so this is the easiest question ever. We lost species. So what does that mean? Is there an increase in genetic material? No, we just lost things. A decrease in organisms available for scientific research? Well, yeah, if we lost species, then there's now a decrease in organisms. That makes sense, doesn't it? Okay. Question 10. Which process occurs at each link in a food chain? Okay, so what you have to know here is something called the 10% rule. The 10% rule says that through each step in a food chain, only 10% of the energy is kept. So what does that mean? Let's say plants as a whole have 1,000 kilojoules of energy in a certain ecosystem. The herbivores are only going to have 10% of that. They're only going to have 100 kilojoules of energy. And the next stage is only going to have 10. And the next stage is only going to have 1. And that's why food chains are always really short, because energy transfer is very inefficient. And why is that? Well, it's because animals along the way are using energy. And when you use energy, that goes away. And also as you move around and stuff, you lose energy to the environment as heat. As we walk around, we have more heat on the inside of our body than outside. And we're using reactions that are exergonic, for example, that can release heat. So 90% of the energy is going to be lost in the environment as heat. You only keep 10%. And that's why at each link in a food chain, we're going to lose energy. And you didn't even have to know the number, but you're actually going to lose close to 90% of the energy. And yeah, as you go about your business. All right. So that's the first 10 questions. We'll stop here.